All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. I have the pleasure of welcoming Tyler Tapley on the show. He's a real estate agent based in Memphis, Tennessee. Tyler has been a real estate agent since 2006. And look, he's had a pretty remarkable career, I won't lie. Tyler's closed over 300 homes basically annually for the last 5 years, which is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, that sounds like hundreds of millions of dollars in sales volume. Welcome to
Is
the
a
show,
lot.
Tyler. How are you, man?
Thank you, man. I'm glad to be on here and glad to talk to you. And yes, I have personally sold that many houses, probably going on 7 or 8 years to be candid with you. But yeah, hopefully we can keep it up.
Pretty amazing. Listen, a lot of the people that watch the show, Tyler, are investors. And so they're investors from all over the country. Obviously, Memphis has been the epicenter for real estate investment for quite some time. How have you built that contact list of people that know to come to you to buy properties in Memphis?
Man, that's a simple question that isn't a simple answer. But honestly, it's a lot like your business. It was about just doing the right thing, showing people what we're doing, how we're doing it, showing the success stories and being, totally honest and transparent as far as like, hey, here's realistically what you're buying. It was setting a level of expectations to be totally honest. And it'd be like,
Yep.
hey, here's what this is going to rent for. Here's what this is worth fully rehabbed. Here's maybe what you could buy it for in its distressed condition. So, um, yeah, I mean that's really how we all started it, and it just kind of
Yep.
took off from there.
Have most of those sales, Tyler, been sales that were distressed properties that investors were coming in and doing some level of renovation to reposition that asset for themselves? I mean, are these houses that are um, you know need a lot of work, basically?
Yeah, so you're right. I was thinking, we just talked about the last 5 to 6 years, but when I first started, it was during the recession. And so back then, 2011, 2012, in fact, I think you and I were actually talking about some of our listings back then that were distressed, and you would call about them, especially in the 38111 area where I know you
Yeah.
love that code. And yeah, back then it was, maybe we were just lucky, but back then there were so many foreclosures and it didn't make
Yep.
sense to rehab the houses because we would have vandalism, we would have appraisal issues because there weren't as many owner occupant buyers, so it was really investors that were the only ones buying, and investors would have to buy them at investor prices, just like you're not going to pay retail, and nor should you. And so that's what we did. We kind of focused on that because that was really the only phone calls we were getting and receiving, frankly, was the only buyers out there were investors who would either want to fix and flip it, keep it as a rental. So they were doing exactly what you do and what you teach. And yes, for the most part, our niche is distressed single family, some multifamily properties here
Mhm.
in Memphis. And as you said, we're very honest and transparent. We tell people, hey, here's what it's going to rent for. We have videos. We have, just like you, we probably have about 700 or 800 videos of our houses. And they're
Wow.
on private links that we can share. But it's basically like a database or a library, and we can show people. So, we just talked about
Nice.
38111, and obviously you're familiar with that zip code. We have probably 40 or 50 success stories and previous houses that we've seen been bought, renovated, and we share those. And we can say to people, like, here's an address of a property on Carnes. That's a street, obviously, in 38111, or Douglas. And we say, hey, here's what it looked like. Here's what this client bought it at. Here's who did the rehab. Here's what it rented at. And then, by the way, let's say they refinanced it. We'll say, here's what it refinanced at, and here's who the lender and the appraiser that handled that. So we can give them the
Yep.
scope of work, the address, everything.
Yeah.
We do all that
That
for
that
free.
is that is actually so, folks that are watching the show that are investors, obviously, they need a real estate agent like you if they're not buying in Memphis, they're buying all over the country. Look for somebody like Tyler and his team, obviously, that does a lot of that groundwork for you. I was buying homes in Memphis, full disclosure. I was living in Houston, buying homes in Memphis, and Tyler's right. And it's funny, Tyler, I'm actually working on a portfolio loan right now, and I was digging up some of the old purchase and sale agreements on houses that are in this portfolio. And you were on a couple of those where I bought houses from you back in 2017 and 18. And so Tyler's right. The value add for a real estate agent like you is doing some of that boots on the ground. If I'm in Houston buying stuff in Memphis and I'm buying stuff in Indianapolis, I need pictures. I need walkthrough. I need honest, an open dialogue about what this house is really like so I can make good decisions. And on the other side, Tyler, from just a pure, lead generation standpoint for real estate agents that are watching the show, how do you tap into the sellers on the other side? So, you build your list of investors. How do you find the sellers of those homes?
Man, it's we so great question. And back to kind of what you were talking about, we have that whole database, we have those addresses. It brings credibility. It's one thing if somebody just says, "Oh yeah, I sold a house," and they don't give you the address, or you wonder, like, man, that was 10 years ago. You can't buy
Yeah.
them that cheap anymore. It brings
Right.
so much more credibility and details when you share all those specific things. As far as sellers, it's funny, and I think this is the same thing that's occurred with you. As we kept doing it, it just kind of morphed and just it snowballed, and we get a lot of our leads actually from other agents who maybe they don't want to do it or they're
Interesting.
not familiar with it. We
Yep.
get we get so many once we get seller leads like we're talking about. We would meet people. There's huge groups of investors that would know each other. We
Yep.
get a ton of leads, and I talk about this all the time from other property management companies who will say, "Hey, we have a client. He owns 5 or 6 houses. He's looking to buy even more." Sometimes that client would be looking to sell. So, I share this now with people. At the time, we didn't really want to say it, but we really kind of put ourselves out there, and a lot of distressed sellers would find us, and they'd be
Yep.
so tired and sick of managing properties from afar, or they wouldn't trust their property management companies. They'd call us up and they were just literally desperate. And I hate to say it, frustrated. And they would just say, "Sell this darn property." Some
Yep.
of them, yeah, we would get some sellers that were pretty happy and maybe they wanted to upgrade. Maybe, as life happens. People
Yep.
get, they get divorced, separated, they move, they just need to sell. So, it's not one specific thing, which is good and bad. Like sometimes I wish it was one thing, but we
Yeah.
were kind of diversified. So it was multiple ways that we continue to get seller leads.
Yep. One of the things I think that you and your team does really well, Tyler, is the fact that, like for us, for instance, we sold a couple of non-core properties, and Tyler had a buyer that bought these properties from us. He showed up, so he didn't delegate this. You didn't delegate this to other people. Like you drew the short straw. You've got to drive over there and do the work. Tyler was there, so I love that you can do hundreds of millions of dollars in sales volume and 300 homes a year, and you're still on the ground, on the scene, doing the work. I think it's a testament to how you've built that big client list and how you built that big seller database is by, showing up, being honest, and doing that work.
Yeah,
So
and you were the
well
one
done.
that owned those houses, and you're right. I remember them on Joy,
Yeah,
Joy. It was two properties there next to each
that's
other,
right.
and it's interesting because yes, I did go, but this is a credit to you. I remember I dealt directly with you. You knew the properties as well. You knew kind of the good, the bad, the ugly. One of them had a tenant. I think one of them, like the tenant had moved out or was moving out, but that's a credit to you because even though you are a busy guy, you have tons of properties, you were very familiar with that. And yeah, I mean, that's, you were sharp.
Attention
You
to
were very, very
detail.
sharp.
Attention to
Absolutely.
detail is the name of the game. Tyler, I got 3 minutes left. These interviews always go so fast, by the way. I tell everybody that, before we
Right.
even start, like 12 minutes zips by. In the 3 minutes that I have left, you've got your hand on the pulse of what is happening from an investment perspective. As the years go by, what's going to happen in 2024? What's the prediction? What can we expect to see as investors trying to buy houses out there?
Man, if it's obviously we're talking right now, it's early 2024. You know, 30, 60 days ago, I was pretty frustrated. I saw that it was a downturn, but to be candid with you, we're seeing activity pick up. And I don't mean just from an investment standpoint. I mean, this is great news. We're seeing houses. I have a good friend that's an agent. They have a brand new subdivision that's just been built here in Memphis. tremendous
Mhm.
success. $620,000 houses, brand new builds. People are writing offers. People are going to look. We have clients that are doing fix and flips right now, and these are houses that are 200,000 or less being marketed to owner occupant buyers in Memphis, and the activity levels picked up from those. The interest levels picked up. So, look, it's not as good as 2021 or 2022, but there's a lot of promise. And I would tell your audience if they're just kind of on the fence, or maybe they bought previously and they're kind of waiting a little bit, it looks really good. I would tell them, I mean, I think you're the same way. We're always somewhat interested in buying. If there's a good deal that comes around and it pencils out, go ahead and do it. And I know
Yeah.
you feel the same way on that.
Yeah, sure do. Are you feeling some optimism from your other investor clients? I mean, I know you represent people that have hundreds of units like me. Are you
Right.
feeling any optimism, rounding the corner into the new year?
Yeah, we definitely are, but and I think none of our clients are totally married to a certain idea. And
Yeah.
so what I mean by that is they might buy something as a fix and flip, plan on doing that. And then they find out, man, I can rent this thing for a really good amount of money, or I can refinance it and get my money back.
Yep.
Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes they buy properties, they plan on keeping it forever, but I'll run comps on them. I'll do analysis. And I'm like, hey, did you know that maybe we could sell this to a retail buyer at a retail price
Yep.
and not do tons of rehab to it? Maybe we should strike while the iron's hot and do that. And then,
Yep.
not to get technical, but then it's like, okay, well, if we do that, should we look at maybe doing a 1031 so we can kind of avoid,
Yeah.
some tax penalties, things like that. So there's definitely optimism. There's definitely different ways and avenues of proceeding on it.
Flexibility is key, man. You hit the nail on the head. I've been guilty of, diving into a niche and staying there, and I've had to kind of, pull my head up and look around a little bit to do things differently. So, Tyler, look, we appreciate you coming on the show, man. Let's do this again, and we'll be right back, everybody.